And we're live. Hello, everybody. My name is Paul Ash, and with me is a fabulous Eric Johnston. How are you doing, sir? How is Hamilton right now? How are you surviving?
Nothing. I am doing nothing right now.
Except for Arm Day.
Well, yes. I've been. The only thing I can control right now is my diet and exercise, and that's all that I've been doing. I haven't had more than 1,800 calories in the new year. And a day, rather, not the whole new year, I'd be dead. 1,800 calories a day, and I've been running a mile on the treadmill. My knees are sore, and I'm still working out. I just, I feel like I'm in prison. I'm like, well, I got to work out at 3 o'clock, so I'll be all right. And then, yeah, I'm just waiting. I'm just planning, plotting, trying to figure out what I'm going to do.
You have control of more things in your life than I do at this point, so I'm like highly jealous because it's just like, I'm locked in again. I've got to eat. And exercise and me have never really gotten along. So
we don't got to get along with it either. I have two body types, especially for casting. It's either the funny fat guy or the funny jacked bro guy. And I don't know, all my roles in TV and film and commercials and stuff seem to be that kind of funny jock, hockey jock, medieval jock type jock guy. And then when I do let myself go, they're like, I don't know. I don't know if it's going to work because, anyways.
There's a lot more of the chubby funny guys out there than there are the bro jock.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get jacked like Boomer Phillips. My body type goal is Boomer Phillips. You know Boomer?
Yeah, also AKA Boomtown on Letterkenny.
Mm-hmm.
So like he's got
there you
that
go.
one coming.
He's got that market cornered. He's actually jacked though.
Yeah.
I just pretend. Mine's all camera angles and filters.
You're looking good. All right. Now this has become the dating show.
Let's go. Let's find me a nice Montreal gal.
Woohoo!
And I have to be home by 8 o'clock.
Yeah, unfortunately, they're not accepting anyone on their couches right now. This is,
you're like, believe me, I've tried.
It's lockdown is pretty serious here. We actually we just hit curfew at this time, so nobody is allowed to be outside the door without a note from their employer.
Wow.
Yeah, this is how serious Quebec is looking at it right now.
And knowing Montreal, they probably have a black market for people
to
creating
get the notes from
employees.
Yeah. Yeah, this guy works for me.
This is my guy.
I don't know where our accents were from for that.
I don't know. Italian, New York, Montreal. I don't know what I'm doing anymore.
St. Leonard.
There you go. That's the neighborhood.
That's the neighborhood. So everybody who's just tuning in, this is They Talk Funny. I'm going to be talking to Eric about his comedy career, his comedy start, his style, his writing, and also life during the current events, which we sort of jumped into a little bit early. So Eric, how would you define your comedic style? I mean, high energy comes to mind.
Does it? Have you seen me before? Yeah, no, I love, I did a show recently, another podcast recently, and I said, my act is like firing me out of a cannon. Taking all the extreme sides of my personality and my upbringing and my physicality and my body and just blowing it up and firing it out of the cannon. And I've always loved, funny big guys and physical comedians. And Dane Cook was one of the first comics I ever saw. Everyone talks about their first, what was the first thing you stand-up comedy you saw? Now, I grew up watching Just for Laughs and Comedy Club 54 and stuff, being a Canadian. But the first real comedy special I watched was Dane Cook. And I'm like, oh, that's funny. And, I get compared a lot to Sebastian Maniscalco, who was another one of my heroes. I mean, I definitely see the comparison. When I opened for him, it was like it was him junior coming out and warming up the physicality. But yeah, I've been doing it kind of this way since I started in 2010. So it's good to see that physical comedy, exploding the way it has.
There's always been a place. Montreal is a lot of the comedians that come out of Montreal are more physical in general.
Gino Durante is very physical. There's a couple. Yeah, I love coming to Montreal. I miss Montreal, I think, the most this year.
Yeah, it's been it has been rough. Now, but you actually have a good deal of writing behind a lot of your jokes. It's not just doing the physical act out. How do you what is your process in writing? Do you have like a dedicated time? Like you said that you're like on a prison schedule right now. Do you set aside a certain amount of time saying, look, I'm turning off the Netflix. I'm going to be writing at this time, or do you just put everything in a notebook or in a jar or in your phone and then pull it out when you feel more inspired to?
Yeah, no, I never take a time. I've always hated that forced. I probably should do more of it, and I'll probably learn to love it. That like, okay, from 5 to 6 or 3 to 5, or that's AM or PM. I'm gonna write in this time. It's like, no, sometimes I just get that spark. I'm usually good for writing a new bit, maybe one a month. Because, when it's hard. Writing, I get this often. I'm performing too much in Hamilton, and I'm performing too much to my friends, because that's really kind of the option I've only had this year. And I think a lot of my friends and well-wishers and local fans have realized that I do my same hour all the time. It's my hour. It's my act. And I do it all over, I do it all over North America. And like I said, I just started to break into the U.S. market. And so that's a whole new crop of people and a whole new crop of fans and people who have never seen me before. So you
want to give them the best hour.
I give them I'm doing the greatest hits. A lot of people don't understand. It's like a band. A band plays the same songs every single night. Not only the same songs, in the same order, with the same breaks, with the same, well, we're really happy to be here in Pittsburgh. We started in Pittsburgh. They have that in the same spot every single night. And, I'm getting chirped locally from my friends and stuff. When are you going to get some new material? When are you going to get some new material? I feel like Seinfeld. And I was like, Jerry, do you have any new material? He's like, I got nothing. I got no new material. But I'm good for writing at least something, in terms of an actual stand-up bit. I usually write one a month. Maybe I write, I start, that's something. And then I kind of pick at it and chisel away at it through the month. And then I start sliding it in somewhere in the middle of the hour when I'm doing my regular hour in a regular world. That's kind of the way I do it. Also, kind of my writing process is through kind of Facebook and Instagram little status updates. If you follow me, and anyone who's watching who does follow me, you can see, maybe once or twice a week I put up like a little bit. A little something. It's a little nugget of Eric Johnston, who on social media across all platforms. I put a little, just a little one-liner or two-liners or three, just a little something, and that's kind of, for me, that's kind of a temperature check. If it gets a certain amount of likes and shares, I go, okay, so people they know what I'm talking about. They know that this is a thing. They can relate to this, and they think it's funny. Then I take that little chunk and then, okay, how am I going to get into this? How am I going to get out of this? Where's the little punch? Where's the main punch going to be? Where can I slide a callback into this? Where can I slide physicality into this? What part of this joke can be physical? I often write that way. And it's worked for me. But it's so funny. Sometimes, you hear about writer's flow. Oh, I got in a really good writer's flow. Like 2 weeks ago, I don't know what it was. I had, maybe I had a good workout and had a good meal or something. I was sitting at this computer and I was just in the zone. I wrote like 14 bits, like 14, like it was just like, bow, bow, bow. And every single one, when you're writing something, you can think, okay, well, that would be a good kind of throwaway line, or that could be a great 7-minute chunk. It was like I wrote like 14 7-minute chunks that I came out of it. It was like a time
That's
machine.
your next hour and a half.
Yeah, I was like, whoa. And I look back at them, and some of them are weak, and they weren't as good as I thought they were in the flow, but there's some really good stuff there. And some really good, I started writing, about 5 years ago, I started making it more personal about, my story, my family, my upbringing, my dad, my mom, my sister, my friends, my drinking stories, my traveling stories. As soon as I started to do that, my career, for lack of a better word, kind of took off because I was letting people into my world and relating it to their world. Before that, in the kind of first 4 or 5 years of my career, I was just writing what I thought the audience would think is funny. And I've said this in my little comedy TED Talks before. I've done it at colleges and universities and stuff. That's impossible to do. It's impossible to write what you think the audience will think is funny because the audience is different every single night with different backgrounds and upbringings and sexualities and religion and stories. If you just say, hey, this is my story, come in with me and I'll tell you about it, then they make it theirs too. I have a joke about how my mom gets lippy when she drinks. My mom, it's my opening joke. And I remember writing this and being like, I don't know if people are going to get this, but I'm going to try it. I'm going to see. I can't be the only one. And then people often come up to me, oh my God, my mom gets lippy when she drinks too. I never thought of it. It must be the rye and, must be the background. Must be the baby boomer. And now these people are like, oh, I'm like to these people, oh, they get it too. So that's kind of long and short is writing me.
There's, wow, you brought up so many things. So many threads I want to pull on this. Like I've always told people, never write what you think people will laugh at. Write what makes you laugh. And the other thing about when you're writing the truth, right? You have that emotive context when it's something that's from you. When you say it out loud to people, they might not recognize such a situation, but they will at least sort of recognize the emotions involved, and that's where they can make that connection with you, and that's where they can find the humor. Now, the other thing, what you talked about, that having that hour, that solid hour that you are holding on to so tight. Have you ever heard of the theory of the second album syndrome?
Yes. Yeah.
So it's
but for our listeners, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to explain, or you want me to?
Well, you explain it because I think I know what you're talking about. But if I'm wrong, I'm going to look like an idiot. So you go ahead.
Okay. So, like a band can become an overnight success, and get that first album out there, and it's gonna go awesome. But the thing is, no one realizes they spent like 10 years writing those songs, coming down with that perfect pattern that is that first album.
Yeah.
And then they have to follow it up within a year, which means if they don't have like the writing discipline or the practice discipline or whatever that's necessary. And the same thing goes for comedians. You'll see either a weaker album, or you might see an album that'll come back that people will go, well, a lot of that is lifted from other people or whatever, or they're just repeating themselves slightly differently, like rehashing their own, their own setups or their own premises when it comes to comics. And it's only by the third album whether or not you're going to see if an artist has longevity.
Yeah.
But that's
that happens to comics all the time. I say that, it takes 10 in comedy, it takes 15 years to make an overnight success. Yeah. And you look at some of the biggest comics in the world, with Kevin Hart or whoever. I think the only person who's completely immune to this is Dave Chappelle, and Bill Burr and Louis before he disappeared. Is just that their first album or special is amazing. Second one's amazing. Third, but it starts to. In the first album, in the first special, you do your hits. You do everything you got. In your second special, you did all of your hits that didn't make it into the first special, plus some new stuff. Then you've got your third special. You got one or two kind of standard classic bits that you used to do that didn't make it in, that have since been reformatted with kind of your new found success. And then the rest of it is
you and your voice.
Yeah, and then everything is brand new after that. And it happens. And to be honest, I'm a little scared. I'm a little scared of that. Not that I don't have the writing discipline and I don't have the story and I don't have the perspective, but my hour, and the thing about this hour is I did record it once, but I got screwed because the audio was so wrong. I hired a production company who I had shot some commercials and TV shows with. I kind of started working directly with them. They loved me. So every time they had a casting that came their way, they would come to me. Hey, we want you to play this thing, or we have this industrial, we have this commercial, we have this bit. We want you to do it.
Always good.
Yeah, it was great. It was a great relationship. And then one day on set, we're broke for lunch, and they go, "So what do you want to do?" I go, "I got this hour I want to film." This was 2016, and it was that hour that I wanted to film is still partially the hour I have now, but it's way better, way tighter. Take 2016, add 4 years of touring nonstop of that same hour. It's going to be slightly different and better. Anyways, they go, I want to film this, and they go, "Well, we'll do it." And I go, "Okay." And then I did all this promo. It was called No Bull. I sold 330 tickets twice. I did a 7 o'clock and a 10 o'clock in Hamilton, and that was like boom. I had a tuxedo on. I kind of wanted to do this kind of old school Hollywood feel because we shot it in this place called the Zoetic Theater, which was a theater from like the 30s that had been completely resto-mod and still looked like the 30s, but it was all brand new stuff. So I wanted that like old school Hollywood feel, tuxedo. I did this hour. It was fantastic. I go in for the edit, and the audio, it sounds like there's nobody in the audience. There was 330 people there twice.
And they didn't mic the audience.
They didn't mic the audience properly. Because I remember I'm not an idiot. The first thing I asked when we were there, I said, how do the mics sound for the audience? And they said they kind of did a test as people were coming into the room, and it was crystal clear. And they even showed it to me when the opener was on, when I had Clifford Myers and Jason Allen, Michael Moses. They were on, and I could hear it coming through perfectly, but something on the back end got screwed up where it was coming through the monitor perfectly, but it wasn't being recorded. So it sounded like I was performing to an empty room. And so it's like you set up, and was it their fault? Yes. Do these things happen? Yes. I triple check. I've been at that point. I had been around comedy 6-7 years. I kind of knew. I've been at special tapings. I kind of know how it works, and it just it didn't work. And I paid them before I knew this, and I went in, and they're like, "Well, we have a solution. We're going to bring in this great sound editor." I'm like, "Okay." What the guy did was he added a laugh track, so it sounded like an old. Like it sounded like Just for Laughs gags. And not only that, he didn't know my hour, and the guy could tell he was just kind of some stuffy sound editor guy. He was putting them in the wrong spots. He was putting the laughter on the setups. And then after I hit the punchline, it would be silence, and then he wouldn't put a laugh in. And I just kind of went, this is fucked. I don't know what to do with this. What am I going to do? And then I think the guy I hired, the original production, he was so embarrassed. He just vanished, gone. I've never heard from him again. So the issue is it makes me look bad because I'm doing all this promo, pre-production. There was interest from Netflix Canada. Like this was going to be a thing. And then it didn't happen. And I look like the liar. Eric Johnston, how far should I go for a liar saying, I got this big special coming, so much so that I filmed it and didn't release it? Had nothing to do with the content. The show was great. I remember walking off the stage and being like, this is it. And it didn't happen. But the good news is I then took that hour, brought it all over Canada, did 75 one-hour shows across Canada. It's so sharp. By the end of that tour, it was like a pin couldn't drop in that act without something being funny. It was so tight. And then that's kind of my hour now. I've taken out some chunks and added some chunks and moved some stuff around. Added some little punches, added a couple tags, but that's pretty much the hour. And that's the hour that I've been touring for the last 3 years. So when people say, when are you going to get new material? I'm like, I can't do it until I film this and burn this. This is my hour. So I just have to keep working the road because everyone in Hamilton has heard my shit.
When you said that you have, like when you were writing, you mentioned that you sat down at your computer. So you write mainly on the computer?
I write on my phone. I write
phone.
in my notes. I just write kind of, like you're almost like a set list. What you would do, and I kind of just write, okay, the line, kind of the opening premise line, and then I just start thinking of little tags and just do it like that. And then in a regular world, I then hash it out and work it out on stage. I go to Levity here in Hamilton, and I'll headline the open mic, and that way I can have like 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and then just go do all of my new stuff. And then just see what works. And then if nothing's working, I go do a classic bit from my hour. Thank you, good night. And then that's the kind of my process.
Yeah. Now, when it comes to like the act outs and all that, are you typing that out in the phone, or you
no?
Just
I kind of just let
that.
That's got to come organically.
Yeah. Do
you
you ever like sort of pre-record your stuff and then listen to it, or do you wait to do that till you've had it on stage?
No, I don't even record it once it's on stage. I just hope I remember it. I probably should. I probably should record it. If I'm doing a bigger show,
you've lost 3 hours of material that way.
Yeah. Well, probably. I've never. Not that I didn't believe in it. I think the guys who do it do great. The guys constantly have either a sound recorder or a some sort of camcorder or camera running in the back of every single one of their shows, I've seen those guys do that, and it's helped them. For me, when I have that, when I know that it's recording and I know that there's a camera, I feel kind of that pressure, and it takes kind of my organic naturalness away. Because in my mind, I'm going, you're just working out right now. There's no judgment. You're just working something out right now. And then when I know that it's recording, I go, yeah, but it's got to be good because the camera's rolling. I think that way, and maybe that's not the right way to think. But I unless I'm doing something big, like I did that the week at the Laugh Factory or wherever, I don't bring a camera.
I want to say, anyone who's watching, if you want to drop any questions for Eric into the chat, we can bring them on stage. Peter Bowen, a Montreal comic, is saying, "Word, what up, LA boys?" Oh,
I thought he called us les boys.
Yeah,
like we're lesbians, which not far off. I do love women.
Now I'm gonna put something out there, maybe twiddle in your brain a little bit.
Okay.
If you get nervous when there's a camera, if it's a big show and you've got the camera and it's being recorded for something, wouldn't it be better to have that little reflex that you're now familiar and comfortable with cameras if you're recording it all the time, so it won't be as big a thing, it won't be as a potential choke or an extra level of stress that you don't need when you're doing a big show?
I see what you're saying, and I'm just talking about I don't record when I'm working on something, that's the time I should be working on it. But when I'm doing a big show, I recorded all my shows at the Laugh Factory and all my shows at the where else was I? Mark Ridley's Comedy Castle. I can kind of rise to that occasion, and I think that comes from, growing up as an actor. Once the camera's on, all right, it's showtime. And then it's even more elevated because I'm so already comfortable in that material. It's an added pressure that I can rise to. Hey, it's running, camera's running, let's go. Where are the cameras? That kind of stuff. It's just, I've just never believed in recording everything you do. Like I would never record an open mic. I would never record, if I was working on a new bit, I would never record if I'm just doing a guest spot somewhere. Again, I should.
Yeah, because I mean the thing. I don't know why I'm lecturing, but I'm just saying that like if an open mic is a great place to ad lib, and if you ad lib something great,
yeah,
if you come off stage, you got to either write it down right away, but you could be being interrupted or talking to people, and then it slips your head. What exactly did I say? And
yeah,
I don't
and that's the biggest benefit to it, to that recording. What I do generally is you're right. As soon as I get off stage, I just go, it's almost like I'm taking mental pictures and I just go boom and I just write it in my phone. Like, say I said something about ketchup, let's write ketchup. I don't know why I use ketchup. I don't know, craft dinner, whatever. That was a very Canadian sequence.
They're not sponsoring us, by the way. Just,
yeah, ketchup and craft dinner. I'm white. No, I think. I do that right away, and sometimes people will come up.
Sauce.
Ooh, that's a good idea.
Sauce. Oh, man.
That's a good idea.
Just cook it and then put the barbecue sauce. Let it sit while it cools a little bit and congeals, because you have to let the KD congeal.
Yes.
And I've gotten fat over my lifetime.
Put it this way, I'm not calling you fat, but I have never thought about putting barbecue sauce in my craft dinner. But yeah, I'll usually go right either backstage or back to the back of the bar, wherever we're at, and just start writing those things down. And if someone comes up to me, I'll go, "Hey, just give me a second. I'm just writing something down," and then I'll put it down, and then interact and have drinks and shoot the shit with comics and whatever. But yeah, that's kind of the way I do. I start as a bit on Instagram, Facebook, whatever. Then I chunk that up and really add to it in my notes. Then I take it on stage, do it out on stage. If it starts to feel, the biggest thing is if it starts to feel like a piece of your hour, like when it starts to feel like it belongs not only with the hour, it starts to feel like a part of your hour. That's when I know a joke's working, and then I really start working on it, and then it just becomes part of my hour. I kind of. If I don't want to take something out of the hour, then that night I'm doing an hour 5 because I want to do that extra 5 minutes of something new in the middle. Like, I don't give a shit. Like, you can light me all you want. If I'm doing an hour, if I'm doing an hour 5, what's the difference? So, that's my process.
Elsbeth Wright is just saying that she's tuned in. I'm glad I just tuned in time for the KD tips. Elsbeth is fantastic.
Great hard worker. I love Elsbeth. She's a great comic.
The Battle of Wits show.
Battle of Wits is super funny, and I was on it. I was on it twice. First time I cheated, and then I admitted to it. And she didn't respond. I wrote on her wall, I'm like, I want to do some self-reflecting and tell you that I cheated on Battle of the Wits, and she just didn't say anything, which made it weirder. She didn't respond, and I'm like, is she mad that I cheated on her game show? But I just love to win.
I might be banned from the show. I'm not sure.
That's what happens. That's what happens at a lot of these Montreal clubs. You do something, and then you're banned from another. I get it. I've heard the stories.
Oh well. You've also you've talked about touring a lot. This past year has been very difficult to tour.
Yeah.
For most part, you did do an absolute run when there was that brief opening in Ontario, but you also did the 75 city or cross Canada tour.
That was 2019. I wish I did that this year. So 2019 from spring to fall, I did a 2-month chunk and then a 1-month chunk. I did 75 one-hour shows across Canada. That was the Eric Johnston Small Town Comedy Tour, and that was fantastic. I saw that, Elspeth. I'm so sorry I didn't see that. It's too awkward for me to respond. She's an overthinker, that girl. I know, I could tell. But yeah, I did the 75 shows across Canada, and it was fantastic. I came back with, I was happy to break even on that tour because I was going so many places and whatever. I came back and with a lot of money, and it's not about money, but it was just kind of the idea of the success of the tour. I did 75. I'd say 45 of them were sold out. And that was to places that I had never even been to before, provinces that I had never been to before. Other shows I showed up and got my ass handed to me with 8 people there and lost money on the night. But then I kind of did the whole tour and laid it out with all the places I went, money I made, gas money, and I made quite a bit of money. It was good.
Name some of the places you went to. Do a little bit of name drop of your favorites and maybe your least favorite.
Okay.
Just one of the least favorites, not to go negative.
No, I don't know. Okay. So I did. I started in Windsor, Ontario, which probably one of my least favorites, which is great. I think Windsor's very hit and miss. Sometimes you'll show up to do a show in Windsor and there's 200 people there, and then the next night there's 6. There's no consistency in Windsor, and that's what's kind of scary about it. From there, I went up into Northern Ontario. I did Sudbury. I did Red River. I did. Then I went to Timmins, and then across to Thunder Bay. Thunder Bay. I went Winnipeg. I went to Saskatchewan. I did Swift Current. I talked about this before, but I did a show in a town called Climax, Saskatchewan. Population 150 people. I sold 130 tickets to the local community hall, which means 20 people in the entire town stayed home, and that was probably my favorite show on the tour. I was, again, slotted to do an hour. I think I did like $125. Because every time I'm like, okay, I gotta go one more thing and I'm out of here. They're like, no, keep like it was like a triple encore, just because I was the first comic to ever come to their town. First,
you realize there was probably 5 people working in that community hall, so that means only 15 people.
Exactly. Well, the mayor was there, and but yeah, it was nuts. From there I did a month alone just in Alberta between Red Deer and Medicine Hat. I did 10 shows in Calgary, 10 in Edmonton. I did one in Pell something. And then I went into BC, and then I did Kamloops, Kelowna. I did Banff, that's in Alberta. And then I went to Vancouver for 2 weeks, and then I went over to the island, did Victoria, Nanaimo. Like, it was just insane. And then I drove straight home. Did my welcome home show back at I literally drove straight home, 3.5 days straight home from Victoria, got home, went to sleep, woke up, did CH Morning Live, the morning TV show to promote the show that night, and then did 250 tickets that night in Hamilton. And then it was like, oh my God. Then I slept for a week and I was depressed because the tour was over. And then I went out east. I started in Montreal.
Now, Peter Bowen said that, he loves Windsor. It parties all day.
Yeah, it's great to party. It's not a great money, not a great money comedy town. That's the issue. You blow all your money at the Windsor Casino. Actually, I won $750 in the casino in Windsor, but anyways, no, it wasn't a lot. I doubled my paycheck. Anyways, and then I went to the East Coast leg of the tour. I started in Montreal. Did that Katrina Club Lounge thing. I can't remember the guy's name. Anyways,
Chris Bonaparte was running that for a while.
No, yeah, the guy doesn't matter. He's like a casting agent for extras and something too. I don't know.
Yeah,
Peter Nankoff or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, he's got several names.
Yes, no, that's I heard for tax reasons. But anyways, I had heard the things that comics had told me, but he promised me a show and a certain paycheck and that it was going to be sold out. I showed up, show happened, certain paycheck, it was sold out. So I got no beef with the guy. And then from there I went out to Halifax, PEI and Fredericton, and I was the whole East. I did every province of the East Coast, 2 or 3 shows in each place, except for I didn't make it to Newfoundland because I had the car with me and it was going to take too much to go up and over or take the 12-hour fare. I just didn't go to the Rock, so that's on my next one. But there's no good or bad. They were all great. Some places there was less attendance, but there was also reasons for that. Like one night there was a snowstorm, so nobody came, and I did a door deal like an idiot. That just happened to be the night I did a door deal. But yeah, I love it. I love touring. I love working the road. I feel like I live on the road. I'm happiest on the road. I get to do my hour without anyone asking if I'm going to do any new material on the road. There's nothing like the road. There's nothing like it.
There is. It also sort of, I guess, the homecoming show to Hamilton, like midway through. It reminds me of the story about Chris Rock. Like Chris Rock was sort of Eddie Murphy's discovery. He had been playing in New York, and people were kind of, oh yeah, so the kid has something. And then he did this like 2 months tour, and then when he came back, he was blowing the doors off because he was having consistent long periods of time on stage, which allowed him to fully develop his voice. Yeah. Not only that, he was stopped doing more inside New York material. He was doing material that actually could relate to larger groups of people, and thus it was hitting even harder.
Yeah, I think that's the key. Right for the country, because that's where you want to go. And right for North America, really, because that's where you want to go. I didn't know how many Canadian references I had in my hour until I started doing it in the States. And I was like, oh, yeah. I had to change so many words and so many, phraseologies. And, I have this one joke where setting up the punchline, I mentioned air mile points. And they don't have air mile points in the States. So I had to change that around and change that setup around. And, thankfully, a lot of my work that I've been doing in the States, pre-COVID was, Northern Michigan, Detroit, Chicago. Like it was kind of that kind of Canadian belt area anyways. So a lot of my stuff transferred over. But then when I did the hour in New Jersey, it was like, there was a lot of stuff like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? You know what I mean? Like it was,
He looks like us. He doesn't sound like us.
Yeah, he wants to be like us, but I don't know what an air mile is. And they don't even call, they call it whiskey. They don't even call it rye. I have a joke about rye, You learn these things the more you go down there. And, but when I see a young comic from Toronto or Montreal or whatever, and they've got jokes about the TTC, and I go, you're not ready for the road. If your closer's about the TTC only goes 40 minutes outside of the downtown core. That's what you're telling the world. I only want to work within 40 minutes of the downtown core. And the only way to learn how to do the road is just by doing it. That's really all.
You know what? Alcohol doesn't mean that much to me, but it means enough that I feel like a little bit of a lecture. You don't mind a little bit of a lecture?
Oh no, okay, yeah, sure.
All right. Can you pronounce that? What do you think that means?
I don't know.
I'll give you a hint. It's Gaelic, actually.
Gaelic?
Yeah.
So it's UC breath. I feel like I'm failing a test on your podcast. Just tell me what it is so I stop looking like an idiot.
No, you're not looking like an idiot at all. It's actually pronounced Ishkabaha. There's actually a band by that name.
Ishkabaha, okay.
Ishkabaha, which means the water of life. Mm-hmm. But early on, there was an English guy was up in Scotland, and they served him some alcohol, and then he looked at it, like he looked at the bottle after tasting it, and he looked at the first word there, and he says, "What is this stuff? Whiskey?" And that's where the name whiskey comes from. And so whiskey.
So this is a good lecture. I thought you were going to yell at me for having a joke about rye. I was like, well, okay, it works.
But I've gotten fuzzy just talking about this. But the thing is, where the whiskey is from is what it's named. So like Scotch is Scotch whiskey, right, from Scotland. There's Irish whiskey, which is the real.
Yeah.
Then you got bourbon. Mm-hmm. Which is from Kentucky.
Yes, the South.
Canadian whiskey is called rye.
Because
that's the Canadian name for it.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to be like, in 1736, some guy was trying to say, why are we drinking? And he said, rye are we drinking? And that's why we call it.
So that's why it's called that. But
rye
the thing is, people understand, like people who understand alcohol understand that rye is a whiskey. Just like if you were to say bourbon in that joke, the people in New Jersey wouldn't be lost. Yeah.
No, I said it, and it still worked, but I said at one point I said rye and Coke, and they're like, what? And I'm like, sorry, whiskey, Coke? They're like, oh, like it was, I was working a club in Newark, so maybe that's why. So.
It could be that. Yeah, they're going, what is he putting in with his cocaine?
Yeah. Which often people think I'm on cocaine because I'm such high energy, but I'm not. I don't do the drugs, which is rare for my neighborhood, Hamilton.
Yeah, it's your community. I always like to say about Hamilton that, not really about Hamilton, that Guelph. I never knew it was a real place. I just thought it was the sound you made when somebody from Hamilton punched you in the stomach. Just Guelph.
That's funny. Some open mic comic who actually has quit comedy since I was on tour in Kingston. He goes, "You're from Hamilton?" He goes, "Yeah." I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "I got a great Hamilton joke for you." And usually when someone tells me this, I go, "Yeah, okay, sure you do." But I'm a polite guy and I like people, so I go, "Sure, tell me about it." And he goes, when you're driving into Hamilton, I was driving into Hamilton with my grandfather, and we saw the population sign that said Hamilton, population 550,000 people. And my grandfather turns to me and said, actually, closer to 750,000 people live in Hamilton. And then he says to his grandfather, then then why does the sign only say 550,000? He goes, because that's the amount of people who will admit that they live in Hamilton. And he said it to me, and I was like, it's actually not a bad little bit. And then he's like, you can have it, you can have it, you can have it. And then he quit comedy. But I don't know if I'll do it. I'll probably do it a little bit better. I just did it how he told me. But yeah.
With those kind of, you're never sure exactly where they heard it first.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, yeah. Hey, I saw this in a textbook once. You want to use it on stage?
Yeah. Now, let's you went to Humber. What did you study at Humber? What was, because you went to Humber and also
the Vancouver Film School. Yeah. So
which one did you do first?
Humber first. So I had grown up doing musical theater and theater as a child. I started at 6, and then at 18 I thought, well, I got to go for school for something. So I auditioned for the Humber College Theater Performance Program, which auditions like 500 people, and they take 40. And I get into this program, and I'm like, oh God, this is great. I'm going to be a star. And it was a 4-year program or 3-year program. And after about 3 months, I was kind of looking around being like, I'm not doing this. Like, this sucks. And it was very, I had a class called spinning, where we literally just spun around in a circle. It was like a form of meditation, where you would spin literally until you got as dizzy as you possibly could, and then she did this like almost the teacher did this like almost like ballerina-esque thing to kind of straighten yourself out, and then you would reestablish and then journal your thoughts. And I'm like, what the fuck am I paying you people for? Like, there was that. We had a class where we would lay down on the ground and picture that we were a color. What color are we today? And then journal about that. It was nuts. And it was very kind of, pompous. Everyone thought every teacher thought that they were the most important person in the world. And this is before I even started doing stand-up comedy, I'm like writing bits about why this is funny, not why I am this color today. And it was mental. I just butt heads like, everyone in my course was so full of shit too. Like, they would pretend to be a color for 45 minutes, and then they go, what were you thinking about, the teacher? What were you thinking about when you were the color purple? And these kids would be like, I just felt at peace with the universe and all this stuff. And she'd be like, Eric, what did you think? I'm like, honestly, I was thinking about what I'm going to eat for lunch. Like, I'm not connecting to this.
That's a very orange thing of you.
Yes, it was very, it was thinking of yellow, which is the craft dinner, which I want to put barbecue sauce in now. And they could tell. At one point the teacher tried to make me drop out. Like, the teacher was just like, I think you don't want to be here. I'm like, I don't. They're like, what are you still here? I'm like, I paid for it. If I drop, my mom's going to kill me. And so I made it 8 months. I made it till March break, and I just didn't go back after March break. And the funny thing about Humber is I dropped out because I was interested in writing stand-up comedy, not even thinking or knowing that Humber has the best stand-up comedy course in Canada. I could have just transferred, but instead I just dropped out. So my mom didn't talk to me for 4 months, which was weird because I lived here, and it was bad. It was probably the most strain I had. I was a theater school dropout, and my mom was just so bummed. My mom's a banker for the Bank of Montreal. She just retired last month, but 45 years at the Bank of Montreal. Like, she's very boom, boom, boom. And then I not only don't go into something, safe. I go into theater school, and you still drop out of that. Like, it was, she was so bummed. But then I moved to Toronto. I was doing some bit parts in TV shows, and I did a 3-episode arc on Degrassi, and I played a SWAT team member leader thing in a show called The Border. And I was doing some acting work and doing some extra work and working at Sunrise Records in Yonge and Dundas Square. And kind of living that kind of boho Toronto artist lifestyle. And I kind of went, I got to go to school for something. So I just put in film school, and it was an ad for the Vancouver Film School. I auditioned. They audition 5,000 people and take 50. I get into that. I'm like, well, first, I must be a good actor. So I keep getting into these prestigious programs. And then I flew out to Vancouver and did 12 months there. And then that's where I started doing stand-up comedy when I was living in Vancouver.
So that was your introduction. Who were the local comics that you first started watching and working with in Vancouver?
Well, yeah, I started in Vans, so like, Simon King, Byron Bertram, Chris Gaskin, Dino Archie had been coming up and down. There was a bunch of guys. I owe a big part of my career to Byron Bertram. I was on Vito Blaze's Coffee Talk the other day, and I gave Byron a huge shout out, and I'll do it again. That guy, from the second time that he saw me, because the first time I was on stage, I asked him what he thought, and which is funny because now comics do that to me. What'd you think of my set? That was my first time ever. And he's like, what? I was doing a shot and trying to talk to the waitress. But then I said, I said to him, okay, well, I'm coming back next week. I would appreciate it if you watched. And he did, which he didn't have to do. And then he was giving me notes. He was offering me tags. And then he said, kid, I think he didn't call me kid. He was only a couple years older than me at the time. But, his son, Eric. He called me Eric. Eric, I think you have something here. I think you're very animated. You're very comfortable on stage. I'll do whatever I can to help you. And he did. He took me around to all the open mics. He was headlining some shows. And he'd go, I'll headline, but this kid's got to do 5. And I was like a month into comedy. He got me on the comedy mix. And I just, and then what happens in most scenes, if someone who comes in new gets a little heat on them, all the open mic comics in Vancouver fucking turned on me and tried to run me out of town because I was this brand new kid from Ontario that came into their scene and gets to open for Byron now. And they all just attacked me and it came at me from all angles. And it almost broke me. I did, after about 3 or 4 months in, there was a show and I knew all those guys were going to be there and I didn't want to go and I didn't want to show up and I didn't want to be a comic anymore. And it was Byron again, who was like, no, he's like, fuck those guys. They're losers. He's like, you're great. You're better than all of them. Just come with me. And I went, okay. Started doing shows again. And then when I moved back to Hamilton, it was just off to the races. I came back from school and it was just like any place I could get on, Toronto, Hamilton, Niagara Falls, Windsor, anywhere I could get on. That's how my career started, just anywhere I could go and whatever I could do. Well, I'm still that way, but
You're still the Campfire tour. When did that happen?
That was this summer. So that was this summer. So after the first lockdown, I did a Facebook Live show. And I enjoyed doing it. I still may bring it back. I brought it back for a couple episodes a couple months ago, and it kind of just fizzled. And it was summer, so people wanted to go outside and not watch Facebook Live shows, which I totally understood because I wanted to be out there with them. And then on that show, I mentioned about I should just come to people's houses. I should just do shows in people's backyards. That's the only thing people are doing is they're having backyard parties. Because at the time, it was 25 people in a backyard, then it was 50, then it was 100. You could have 100 people in your backyard. And I'm like, that's a show. So I created this thing, the Eric Johnston Campfire Comedy Tour. And I wasn't the only guy to do it. There was some people doing the Campfire Funnies or the Backyard, whatever. There's Edmonton. There was one in Saskatoon. I know that there was one in Thunder Bay that they called the Campfire Comedy Tour, even though I had already done 3 or 4 shows. Doesn't matter. I wasn't the first comic to do it, but I feel like mine was massively successful. I did 12 of them, people's backyards, there was 50 to 100 people at every show. People were renting Airbnbs just to have me in their backyard, of the backyard of the Airbnb, and then I would set it up properly. The lighting's dark in here, but there's an actual backdrop behind me. I'd have a full oak stool, PA system with a microphone, spotlights, and 2 opening acts. And it was like a proper show. I did it. I didn't just do hey, we're here in your backyard and make you laugh. It was no, okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Campfire Comedy Tour. I ran it like a comedy club, just happened to be located in your backyard. And I was all over the place. The Muskokas and Fort Erie, Niagara Falls, Hamilton, St. Catharines, Toronto, a couple in Stony Creek, which again, people came to thinking that they would hear new material. They didn't. And it was crazy. And then the last show I did, I rented a farmer's field at just over here in Stony Creek. My friends own a business. It's a recording studio and art space. I say art because you could be a musician, you could be anything there. It's called Tweedside. And they built a stage out in their back field, and I sold 100 tickets. And people showed up with their lawn chairs and set it up like it was in the round. It was surrounded by sunflower fields. My stage was at the one end with a proper spotlight, and I did my hour there. And it was great. I'm gonna do it again this summer, 100%. There's no doubt. I'm already trying to book that now. I'm just kind of waiting to see the numbers are going lower. The vaccine seems to be working. When can I start this thing? Excuse me. Because as soon as I can, I'm gonna do as many as I can. So
what is okay? You got into. I'm being a full company boy here.
Look at you. Would they send that to you when you signed up?
No, I actually won this one on a contest, but that they had. But it's they make it so easy for everybody to kind of stream and look quasi professional. I mean,
it's great. Yeah, I used StreamYard when I did my show, and I had the with the banners and the logos and the video and stuff. This is a great service, and I'm going to use it again when I come back and do whatever I'm doing.
Yeah. Well, okay. That's kind of been a bit of my question. Do you think that the online formats of comedy, which they're not the same as a live, obviously.
Yeah.
Do you think that they are going to stick around or more for somehow still be a thing once we get back into the new normal?
Well, okay, I'll say this. I mean, again, in this basement now, I took the same setup that I had for the Campfire tour and just put it into my basement. Got the proper HD 1080p, webcam with this mic, and I hold a mic that's not plugged in anything, but it just makes it feel normal. I did all my corporates this year on Zoom, and they worked. I was shocked. So when the first lockdown happened, I kind of had the idea, and I don't like to think like other comics. There was all these comics on, there's kind of this movement where kind of the alt comics, like guys who don't work clubs, they work, knitting factories or whatever. They have this thing where they make fun of, they kind of bully people for working. If that makes sense. They're like, well, I'm never going to sell my soul to do a Zoom comedy show. I'm an artist, and I like to talk about my cat on stage, so I'm not going to be doing that. And again, they have their own careers, and that's great, and I don't mean to shit on too many people at once. But I kind of went with them, which I don't usually do. I kind of I'm a club man, I'm a theater man, I'm a touring comedian. I don't need to work the back of a laundromat because it's the cool thing to do when you don't get paid. I would rather do a show that I get paid because this is my living. But again, I thought kind of like them. Oh, fuck this Zoom comedy. Are you kidding? How are we going to do Zoom comedy? And that was the first lockdown. And then I got offered a booking from I had just kind of finished a rant. I didn't put it on Facebook, but talking about how Zoom comedy is going to become the death of comedy. And then a promotion from Frankenmuth, Michigan, who has had me booked for a live show that they canceled. Said, listen, we're doing it on Zoom, but we're going to kind of do more of a variety show. We'll give you $250 American to do 12 minutes. And I was like, what time do you need me? So I did it. And then in doing it, I realized that it wasn't that bad. It was actually a lot of fun. So now I'm like, oh, this isn't that bad. So now I'm building a comedy club in the basement. I'm getting proper webcams and whatever. How can I do this the most professional way so that I will be booked? Then I went off and did the Campfire tour, and I did that Absolute run, and I thought, okay, well, I have it. I can use this kind of setup when I need to. I'll just see what happens. And then Mark Anthony Synagoga, local comic here, he's not local, he tours all over. He's a headlining comic himself. He has a company called Funny Man Inc., and they book corporate comedy. And he knew that I was interested in doing corporates. So he messaged me, goes, hey, do you kind of want to be in my corporate roster? And I went, yeah, okay. Almost like a promoter, but not really. Like a manager, but not really. And he booked me 6 of them. And then I booked another 6 of my own. And I did them like this. And some of them were good. Some of them were bad. Some of them, they had their mics off completely. So it's you're doing your jokes with no reaction. So your mind starts thinking you're bombing. Because your mind's so here to laughter. If you don't hear that laughter, your mind's going, you're bombing, get off stage, start sweating, they hate you, get out of there. And so I had to kind of fight those feelings so I could see them laughing. I could see their screens. I couldn't hear them, but I could see them. Like I could see it. So I'm like, okay, I'm getting a reaction. This is good. The worst one I did was I couldn't see any of them. I couldn't hear any of them. There was just a chat window down the side, and I would like hit a punchline and see like LOL or like that's true. That was bad. But some of them I did one that had like 50 mental health and addiction counselors. It was for them. It was their Christmas party that I booked myself. And they all had their mics on, but it was like they were at work, so they laughed when it was appropriate, but they didn't talk. They didn't, they weren't drunk. They weren't disruptive. They just sat there like an attentive audience, laughed when it was appropriate, and then shut the fuck up, and then laughed when it was appropriate and shut the fuck up. It was fantastic. It was my favorite Zoom call of the corporate season. And then New Year's, I did the Eric Johnston New Year's Eve show on Zoom. I sold 80 tickets, and then I said to the people, keep your mics on. I would love to hear all of you laugh, but you have 80 drunks on Zoom. It was the worst. I had to mute everybody and then not give them the option to unmute. Like I wouldn't even allow it because even the openers, Michael Moses opened, he suffered because they would talk over the punchline. Some people had feedback. It was just a disaster.
Is that Mike Moses originally from Montreal, Mike Moses?
No, Michael Moses, there's two of them, and they're both black, so they're easily confused.
Okay, I'm thinking about the white Mike Moses.
Okay, there was another one.
So there's in Toronto. I was
three of them.
Happy that thinking he was getting back into it, but
no, there's been three, but Michael Moses, he's originally from Coaldale, Alberta. I met him in film school. Michael Moses is the guy who took me to my first open mic ever. And so I owe Moses a lot of my career as well. So he's my touring feature act. So he comes with me everywhere, or vice versa, and we just work together side by side. Anyways, he was here in my basement on New Year's Eve, and we did the show, and he suffered until I muted everyone, and then they started paying attention and whatever. But yeah, I'm doing it. I'm like any port in the storm type guy. If this is what we have to do, this is what we have to do. If you're gonna do it fucking professionally. Like if you're gonna do a Zoom call show, set it up right. Put up the backdrop, set up the spotlights, get the proper microphones, get the proper camera. If you want to do it on a green screen, get a proper green screen. Do it the right way. Do it as if you were at a proper comedy club. Same thing with the Campfire tour. I could have just showed up to people's houses and be like, "Do you guys have a mic? Or am I supposed to yell?" No, I did it the right way. I did it with the mic and the mic stand and the spotlight and the backdrop. And, that's just, you have to do it the right way. Because if you don't, you look like a fucking moron. And no one will respect you, pay attention to you. So if you want to be a comic, well, I don't care. I'll just do whatever I want. Well, that's your career is going to reflect that. That's all.
Your canoe analogy.
With surfing?
Yeah, surfing analogy.
Stay in the water.
Stay in the water. I think we might make that as the last thing. If you want to reiterate that, it's something that you're known for giving as an analogy to people. And since this is more or less aimed at people who are interested in or are actually performing and writing comedy, would you care to give that piece of advice again?
Sure. I love this one. I recently put up two ones. Life is a roller coaster, enjoy the ride, and stay in the water. Kind of my two talks when I do speaking engagements at colleges and classes and stuff just about the entertainment industry. And the one that seems to get the most response is the stay in the water thing. So the idea being that that life and opportunity and happiness and all that stuff, the good stuff in life, comes and goes in waves. It's like surfing, right? Now, your job is to always be in the water. Your job is to always be out in the water trying to catch waves. Not only that, when you're in the water, you have to, your board has to be waxed. You have to have the best, best board, best wetsuit. All the tools. I said in my talk that I posted recently, shark finder, and people are like, "What the fuck is a shark finder?" I'm like, I don't know. I'm just trying to think of things that a surfer would have. You need to have all of the tools that are going to make you the best surfer, so that when that wave comes, that opportunity comes, you can hit it and ride it all the way as far as you can. Then, when the thing settles, you paddle back out and you wait for another wave. The issue with the entertainment industry and with kind of, I hate the word haters, but for lack of a better word, haters, there's too many people standing on the shore telling other people how to surf. They're standing on the shore. They've given up on surfing, but they still got a surfboard, and they've got maybe an old surfing trophy that they got when they used to surf, and they're standing there going, "Look at that guy. Who does that guy think he is? Catching waves. You know, I used to surf 10 years ago. I caught the biggest wave, and I rode that thing, and then I got out of the water." Okay, I'm not interested in anyone telling me how to surf if they're not in the water. It's that simple. You're not a surfer, so you can't tell me how to surf. The only way you're going to learn how to surf is by being in the water. And I will teach you how to surf. If you want to come out and surf with me, and by that I mean travel with me, open for me, ask me for advice, I'll show you what to do. But you have to get in the water. You can't stand on the shore and watch me, because you can never learn how to surf from watching from the shore. The only way you'll learn how to surf is by getting in the water and staying in the water. And it's that simple. That's the talk.
You know what? I know I sort of promised that was going to be the last thing, but I never noticed before. Your guy on the beach, that was one of the best Trump impressions I've ever heard. Have you done any?
No, I hate him. No, that's funny.
All right. But it's great that you set that up as the villain for that talk.
Yeah.
This has been They Talk Funny. Eric Johnston. He's Eric Johnston Who on all social medias. Also, ericjohnstonwho.com is the website. We want to thank everybody who has tuned in. My name is Paul Ash. This is They Talk Funny. We try to get at least 2 of these videos up a week. Next one is Tuesday at 8 p.m. with Deb DeGiovanni.
Oh, Deborah. That's great. That's a good guess.
Yeah.
Better than me.
Fantastic.
Well, more accomplished.
We're all good, and I know that we're all having a hard time here, so I'm just going to put this up here. This is the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. Please check in on your friends, take care of people, and keep connected with everyone. Thank you very much, Eric, for being part of this. Did you have fun?
I did. Yeah,
yourself?
It was great. It was great. I always love talking to you. I love when I get to Montreal, if I'm doing the Nest or whatever, and I come into the green room and you're there. We can always shoot the shit, and it's great.
It's you've been a fantastic guest. I want to thank you and thank everybody who tuned in and everybody who chirped in as well. Take care. We'll see you the next time.